Next up, it's a tradition. It's a tradition I'm not mad about her friend's body being found in the woods behind her house and having it dredge up a whole bunch of messed up things. That is what a month of Audrey writing will do to a person. So that's fine. It has a very, and then there were none. No, that's not true. Has a very isolated on an island. Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse. And I can't even believe this, but welcome to December new releases. How was it the end of the year? I've already done 11 of these so far. I can't even believe it's December, but here we are, ending out the year with a bunch of really exciting books that of course I wanted to talk to you guys about. So without any further ado, let's just jump right in. The first book I want to talk about is coming out on December 5th. I already have my hands on it, which I'm super excited about, and this is Devil's at the Door by Tessa Wiegert. So this is book number 5 in the Shayna Merchant series. So if you guys have been here for a bit, you've probably heard me talk about Tessa Wiegert before, and her first book in the series, Death in the Family, is one of my favorites. So I've read it twice. It is an isolated, on an island, missing person, a lot of blood, police get called in. Shayna is a detective. I was gonna say an investigator. She's investigating, she's a detective. And her partner go out to the island and things start to happen. So I just finished book number 3 in the series and I'm very excited to see what happens next. I'm of course gonna be cryptic and I'm not even gonna read what this is about because I haven't read book 4 yet, so I don't wanna risk any kind of spoiler in it. But if you guys have followed me, by the time you see this, I think this will have already gone up on Instagram. So I wound up doing a charity auction for We Need Diverse Books, and I wound up bidding on book 4 and book 5 in this series. And I feel like I've talked about it on this channel already. I think I have. So anyway, it's like autographed, which is super, super cool. She couldn't be sweeter. She's the nicest lady in the entire world. It's personalized. And then I also got a copy of book number 4, which is annotated, which is super, super cool. So again, this will be out in December. I'm very excited about the series. You also get like the naked cover, which is the same as the jacket cover, which I like. And yeah, I'm really excited to see where it's gonna go. So she is a detective. She was in Manhattan when book number 1 opened. She's just leaving Manhattan to go to upstate New York to get a new job with her fiance. They move up there. It's his hometown. And, you know, murder and investigating ensue. So if you haven't already read Death in the Family, I highly recommend it because it's such a great book. You can definitely still read 2 and 3 without reading 1, but 1 is still my favorite so far, but stay tuned. So anyway, this is out on the 5th, book number 5, out on the 5th. All right, that's the only one I have my little mitts on-ish so far. So to get into the rest of them. Okay, next up is The Other Mothers by Katherine Faulkner. And I just had the weirdest deja vu that I have already filmed this video and I legit just had to stop and go back and look. I filmed my year-end video and I talked about some of these books there. So if you've already seen that video, some of these titles might sound familiar. If you haven't already seen that video, I will link it for you guys. But I just had a moment of, have I already done this before? That's what November has been like. That is what a month of Audrey writing will do to a person. So onward. The Other Mothers, Katherine Faulkner. She wrote Greenwich Park, which came out 2 years ago, which I have, but haven't read yet, so that's fine. So in this one, it says, a fresh and deftly paced thriller about murder, class, and motherhood in one of London's toniest communities. I feel like I said that word wrong. When a young nanny dies under mysterious circumstances near new mom Tasha's house, she is certain that this could be the story to relaunch her journalism career. Meanwhile, she also needs to find a local playgroup for her son, and nearby is the gorgeous neighborhood filled with wealthy and friendly families, stunning houses, and lavish playdates. So she winds up getting in with these ladies. She starts looking into a nanny's murder, I think it is. Again, I'm like kind of looking through this with like half an eye closed. So it says, are these women really her friends? Or is there a more dangerous reason why Tasha's being accepted into their exclusive world? Who is investigating who? I don't really know, but I will say Kate from Killing the Tea has already read this book and was raving about it, and I'm very excited for it. I was already excited for it. Kate definitely upped it a couple of notches. So this one is definitely on my list. I did ask for an arc of it / book of it, so I don't know if I'm gonna get it or not, but if I don't, I'm gonna buy it because I'm excited. So I'm watching the countdown on that one. Okay, next up, we have Darby Kane. So I have only read one Darby Kane book, but I definitely enjoyed it. I read Pretty Little Wife, and I am pleased to say that it went way darker than I thought it was going to. So I'm very excited about this one, because this one 1000% has one of my favorite things in it. It is an "and then there were none" trope, and it also says meets I Know What You Did Last Summer. So do I love I Know What You Did Last Summer? Of course I love I Know What You Did Last Summer. And we're going to mix it with some Agatha Christie. It's amazing. So on this one, it is a private island in Maine, and secrets are piled upon secrets, and lies are piled upon lies, and all will be revealed in one fateful weekend. Did I tell you it's called The Engagement Party? I feel like I didn't say that. So it says the guest list is a real killer. I love a book tagline. So Emily Hunt went missing from her affluent liberal arts school on graduation weekend. Her body was found floating in a river, and a quiet loner who most people on campus really didn't know committed suicide. A tenuous link, one text, bound the two students together and was enough for law enforcement to close the case. But they got it wrong, and now someone is determined to set it right. So 20 years later, college friends are gathering together. This is one of my favorite plot lines for a book. Give me a past mystery, give me a group of friends from college getting back together again, and then all the secrets and lies are coming out. I'm not going to read anything else about it because that's all I need to know. And I kind of want to say, and I don't know if I'm imagining this, but I feel like Gare from Killing the Tea was raving about this one. So as always, I will have the link to their podcast down below. I'm super fans of Kate and Gare's. If you guys have been here for a minute, you already know that too. But this sounds really, really good. And I mean, anything with an "and then there were none," it's like my catnip. I will absolutely read it. And I will talk about it here. So, okay, the next book is #Crime Time, and this is by Geneva Rose and her husband Drew Pine. I have already listened to this. This was a Libro FM ALC pick, and I binged it in a couple of hours. It's like a 4-hour audiobook, and this was such great fun. So this is an audio only. There's a full cast on the audio, and I am a huge Geneva Rose fan. I follow her online. If you guys are not following her online, she is a must. And her husband, to me, are such relationship goals. They are so funny. She puts out the best content. I'm just such a massive fan of hers, and I love her books. I totally misspoke on here whenever ago it was, when I talked about her new book. Where are you? Where are you? Oh, it's up here. It's A Date Again. So I was like, oh, this is like, after I read this, I will have read all of her books, and I've like read her to zero. So she wrote 2 books, first 2 books she wrote, which are part of a series, which I totally didn't realize, and I feel like such a dope, but I fixed it because I bought them. I feel like they should be in touching. They're not. Anyway, I'm a big fan of hers. I've read almost everything she's written. I feel like when I talked about her new book, It's a Date Again, I was like, I've read everything she's written, but I will correct that soon. But back to this one. So when her and Drew started writing this book, she talked about how it was inspired by some real life events. So her and her husband live in Chicago, and I want to say they moved there a couple of years ago, and there was one night where there was like this weird banging noise happening from up above, and they looked out through their peephole, and there were like men in ski masks coming down the stairs with boxes, and they wound up calling the police. And then after the men left, they went up to the neighbor's apartment to investigate, found all sorts of weird stuff. And the book follows the same path, but then the book deviates into sort of like what could have happened. And in the book, it is a brother and sister who are living together in an apartment in Chicago. And we see as things unfold. And there's so many great characters in this. The audio narration is fantastic. It's got like a #Crime Time. So the brother is starting like this true crime podcast, and it's got the social media, Instagram, TikTok vibes to it. And there's just great humor to it, and it's a fun mystery. And it definitely kind of like only murders with like some more humor, kind of like in a Finley Donovan kind of a way. So it's not like dark and serious. If you've read some of her other books, like A Perfect Marriage, it's just like levity and fun, but also a great mystery woven together. So I highly recommend it. And her husband have like a little talk at the end of it explaining the inspiration for the story, and it's totally worth listening to. So great fun, hugely recommend, and a super quick read, listen. So you can't go wrong. Next up, I do have a completely dark book. called Coming to Find You by Jane Corey. So, darkness after my own heart. In this one, Nancy's mother and stepfather have been brutally killed, and after a trial that gripped the nation, her stepbrother was convicted of the double murders. But the end of the trial is just the beginning of a new nightmare for Nancy. So crazy press. They are certain that Nancy isn't the grieving daughter that she's presenting to the world. They're coming for her. And in fact, they believe that she knows more than she's telling about that night at the farmhouse. Grief-stricken Nancy flees to the Cornish seaside to her grandmother's secluded inn to escape the media circus and scrutiny. Finally alone, save for a few neighbors who keep to themselves, Nancy is relieved. But she soon realizes that Tall Chimneys, which is the name of the secluded inn that she's staying at, holds many dark secrets, and she is holding the biggest one of all. When people are coming after you and you go someplace secluded, you know bad things are going to happen, right? I haven't read this yet. I'm just going to make a leap and say something bad's probably going to happen. So I'm very excited. I don't want to say I'm excited about the concept, because I do feel like the idea of media circus around a big trial and all of the attention on it feels very familiar and current right now, but I'm intrigued by this one. I am not at all familiar with Jane Corey as a writer, but she has written a handful of books, and I'm just like reading her bio real quickly, and it says that she spent time working as the writer in residence of a high security prison for men. So she's a writer and journalist. So that's interesting, and I'm gonna guess probably sparked some dark ideas for her books. So stay tuned. It's definitely on my list. Okay, next up is actually a re-released / rebranding of a book, but I haven't read it yet. So this is The Vacation by John Mars, which was originally released as Welcome to Wherever You Are. And I don't know why they're re-releasing it as The Vacation, but they are, so here you go. So kind of a new release in a way. So in this one, it says, how far would you run to escape your past? For 8 strangers in a Los Angeles backpacking hostel, even the other side of the world isn't far enough. The craving for a new identity and the chance to start again is something they have in common. But the search for a fresh start isn't as easy as they imagined. And soon they discover that it doesn't matter where you are or who you are. If you can't lay the past to rest, coincidence, fate, and deception have a way of catching up with you when you least expect it. So again, if you guys have been here for a minute, you know that I'm a big fan of John Mars. You also will know that I am very delinquent on reading more of his books. So the first of his books that I read was The One, and I loved it. I read that in 24 hours. It was not a short book. I was completely obsessed. I very rarely will read a book in that kind of a way, like not counting the audiobook that I just said that I listened to, but like physically read this. Loved it. I'm looking at a list of his books to make sure I don't mess anything up. What Lies Between Us was also absolutely fantastic. I totally loved it. I have The Good Samaritan and I haven't read it yet. I have Keep It in the Family, but I haven't read it yet. And I've heard amazing things about Keep It in the Family in terms of dark and messed up. And I maybe totally just purchased The Marriage Act as part of a Black Friday deal. So more John Mars needed. And of course, I'm putting The Vacation on the list because I think he's fantastic. He's also a great one to follow on Instagram if you don't. He makes great content. But I love that he goes dark and messed up. I did not know what to expect from him when I read his first book, and I was totally, no pun intended, like thrilled by the thriller. But I just thought it was so inventive and so clever. And he writes this like sort of like alternative universe, present day, slightly into the future, some sci-fi-ish kind of elements to a degree in some of his books, and others are just straight up psychological thriller, but massive fan of his. And they can rebrand it 10 days till Tuesday. I'll read it. I'm in. Up next is Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. So this is the sequel to Divine Rivals. I definitely talked about this in that year-end video. So I read Divine Rivals earlier this year and I was totally mesmerized by it. It's definitely not my zone. Like it's funny, like to me, I'm like, oh, this is fantasy. But for people who read fantasy, they're like, this is such light fantasy. I feel like it's like fantasy for beginners, which is how I am. I was drawn to it because it's 2 journalists in that story, the writing, the letters is very much an important core piece of that story, and that's what drew me to it. So I definitely enjoyed it very much, was very engaged. I definitely want to know what's going to happen next. So I did pre-order this one, and I'll read it when it gets here, right? So it just says the epic conclusion. So we're just going to have a duology that brings me some joy. I don't need to get into like some crazy, crazy long fantasy series. And it's pitched as young adult, but I want to say they were in their, I don't know, were they 19 or 20? I feel like they felt a little bit older than they were, but I feel like other people said they felt younger than they were. It's right there. So it's not like, when I think of young adult, I think high school, they're out of school, so call it whatever you want to. And I'm not going to tell you what it's about as I'm sitting here looking at the description of it, because if you haven't read Divine Rivals yet and you want to, this would not be helpful to you at all. But I will say, if you are not a fantasy reader, it could be a good entryway into the fantasy genre. That's how I'm calling it. And it was fun. It was good. I was very into it. It surprised me how much I enjoyed it, in the sense of like, not my genre, not my go-to. And I just enjoyed the departure. And yeah, like I said, I'm curious to see what's going to happen next. So ordered it. And then the next book I have is What Waits in the Woods by Terry Parlato. So this makes me want to talk about What Lies in the Woods by Kate Ellis Marshall, which is what I'm reading right now. This is just the cover here. But can we talk about how ridiculously stunning this cover is? I'm obsessed with this cover. And I actually have the e-arc of this, which I'm excited about. So in this one, we have a riveting thriller from a new master of suspense. So her first book came out last year, and I definitely totally have it. Somewhere. Never stops being embarrassing. It's called All the Dark Places. I haven't read it yet. It takes place in the suburbs of Boston. I'm very excited for anything in Boston. But anyway, these books are not related, but this is her second book. So in this one, it says, a young dancer's homecoming is marred by a grisly discovery and the realization that nothing in her past may be quite what she believed. So when Esme Foster left the Boston suburbs, I love a Boston book, to become a professional ballerina, the future shimmered with promise. Now it's 11 years later. Her career has been derailed by an injury, and it is time to come back to Graybridge to help her brother care for their ailing father. But her return coincides with an unthinkable crime. Kara Cunningham, one of Esme's high school friends, is found dead in the woods behind the Foster's house. So I'm guessing Kara Cunningham is what waits in the woods. So Esme is shocked and grieving. She is uneasy. There is other stuff happening here, and all of a sudden I'm just like, I don't even want to read this. So there is a detective in this book called Rita Myers. Her name is Rita Myers, and part of me feels like she was the detective in book number 1. So maybe this is series-esque in the sense that we're following the same detective. We are. Look at me. Haven't even read book number 1, but look at me remembering that there's a detective in it. So if you read book number 1, Boston PD Detective Rita Myers is back. And I don't know, we've got a new mystery. So anything Boston-esque, you guys know that I love. And I'm not mad about her friend's body being found in the woods behind her house and having it dredge up a whole bunch of messed up things. So stay tuned for this one too. I should say that for all of the books, but since I legit already have my hands on this one, maybe stay tuned a little bit more. Or if this book sounds interesting to you, check it out. Oh my gosh. The year's ending with so many good books. I cannot catch up to save my life. Okay. The last book I have for 2023 is The Weekend Retreat by Tara Laskowski. And this also gives me the vibes of things that I love. 3 couples, 3 days, a family getaway to die for. Boom, boom, boom. Yes! Every year, the illustrious Van Ness siblings, heirs to a copper fortune, gather at their luxury winery estate for a joint birthday celebration. It's a tradition they followed nearly all of their lives, and now they are back with their significant others for a much-needed weekend of rest and relaxation away from the public spotlight. So Lavish comforts, gorgeous scenery, indulgent drinking. It should be the perfect escape. But it soon becomes clear that even a remote, idyllic getaway can't keep out the problems simmering in each of their lives. Old tensions, people pushed to the edge, all sorts of secrets, I'm gonna guess. And it says, who's been watching them from beyond the vineyard gates? And then we have weather, and then we have things, and stuff is gonna happen. So also a stunning cover. I'm kind of a sucker for a cover, you guys know, but I'm very excited for this one. So I am also negligent. I have not read anything by Tara Laskowski, but I definitely have One Night Gone, which is one of her thrillers. So let's make up for some lost time and check out this one. But it sounds really interesting to me, and I'm always on the lookout for a new mystery thriller and like a new writer, by which I mean new to me, even if her book, which I know is sitting down over here, if I already have one of their books. So anyway, oops, horn. I'm just really excited for the end of the year. I really am. But there's some really exciting books coming out, and a lot of, like I said, new to me authors. I'm definitely hoping, as I close my laptop, hoping to spend the end of the year getting caught up on some books. So I have spent, for anyone who's interested or who's made it this far, I have spent all of November up till today, still have like the last few days to go, doing National Novel Writing Month. I have written every day with the exception of Thanksgiving Day, which was also my dad's birthday, and it was fine. It was absolutely fine. But I have made great strides in working on my manuscript, on rewriting it, on just making progress, writing every day. I'm excited about it, and my reading has definitely taken a dip. So I do plan to continue to write into December, like my writing doesn't stop. I would love to keep up this daily habit, which has been daily minus one day. Totally fantastic. And in all fairness, on the day after Thanksgiving, I only wrote like 2 pages, but still, words are words. But I would also like to spend some time catching up on a bunch of books that I just haven't had the capacity to absorb in November. Can you tell? I've lost it. I've lost my mind. So anyway, big plans for December. Some of these books are part of it. And I, of course, will tell you guys about them when I read them. So you guys know what to do. Let me know which book you are most excited about in December. What did I not talk about that is hot on your list? Or are you just also like me, already looking ahead to 2024? I think I'm going to do a 2024 preview video. Is that something you'd be interested in? Let me know. There's so many books, you guys. I can't even begin to like wrap my head around how exciting it's going to be next year too. So on that note, I'm going to go, but I hope everyone is doing great. Thank you for sticking with me. I know I have been kind of very much totally off the grid in the month of November, but I'm here. I'm just can only juggle so many things at a time. But I hope everyone's doing great, and thanks for being here. And if you're doing bingo, I hope it's going well. I've been terrible updating my bingo too. I know, I'm just failing at everything. But I will see you guys in another video, and until then, take care, everybody. Thanks for everything. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you soon. Oh my gosh, bye.